Hey, Coach, reflecting on that first meeting with Chicago, what are some things you know that you have to do better in order to be successful against the way that they play?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're two kind of bread and butter offensive scenarios are pick and roll Levine and post ups with Vooch, a little bit of Thad Young down there as well. They go big as often as they can. So rebounding will be, important for us. And as always, we want to really prioritize our own performance and really play well and do the things we do and be sharp and play together as always. And if we do that, hopefully, regardless of what they do, we put ourselves in a good position to win.
How is James Harden trending? Workout yesterday. I know you like to look at how he's feeling the next day. How's he trending?
Good, really good. I think he had good signs today after a physical day yesterday. So all still really positive, and hopefully we'll get a look at him before the end of the year.
Malika Andrews, ESPN.
Hey, Steve, more on the injury train. How did Bruce break his nose? What happened there?
Just a collision in practice, kind of unfortunate, but normal NBA stuff. So, he's a tough cookie. So we're not worried about him. Obviously it's no fun, but he's he wants to play and is ready to play.
Will he be wearing a mask tonight?
I think so. We got to get him the proper mask, I think, at home, but I think he's unwilling to not wear anything and not play, so he's going to play.
Thank you. I'm sure Twitter will love that.
Brian Lewis, New York Post.
Hey, Steve. This is twofold. One, with James, you wouldn't have any more road games left after this. So, I mean, is there a thought to just not wanting to play him and then put him on a plane with lactic acid? Would you expect more likely than not that you might see him tomorrow?
I couldn't put a percentage on it. We have to just continually monitor the situation, and but I think there's the idea is that he plays in one of these last three games, but it's totally up to a number of factors that I couldn't give you a straight answer right now. So we'll see, how the rest of today goes, how tomorrow goes. We also consider what happens with the team and all those different parameters, and not just James individually, but we're hopeful. We hope he can play in one of these last three games, but we'll have to decide when the time comes.
And with Landry Shaman, I was just curious what you had seen from his shot, if there's anything that's crept in there mechanically, or you just chalk this up to a make or miss league?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see much in the mechanics. He's had some ups and downs this year. He fought out of a really tough start, so we have confidence in him. We think he'll come around shooting the ball wise. He always plays hard. He always plays with pace. When he makes shots, he really makes a big difference to our team. But he always puts in, a great effort. And so we're not worried about him. We trust him, and we believe his shooting will come around.
Christian Winfield, New York Daily News.
Hey, Coach. Joe said that having James out there on the floor is kind of like having a head coach out there on the floor in certain ways. Just what I'm kind of trying to understand what he means by that. How is James kind of an extension of what it is that you want to do out there on the floor?
Well, he's such an intelligent player, and he understands where to put guys, where to put them in their spots. He understands what we want to do offensively and defensively. He's a great communicator with his teammates. So, he's kind of more like the prototypical point guard in a sense, an old school point guard in a way. And so he's great as far as, and helps us all, I think, just to make sure we're organized, we're communicating, we're connected. And so that is a big part of his value that maybe was underappreciated before he came here. We knew how talented and effective he was as a player. We didn't know, I didn't know how well he led his team, how much he cared, and how much he communicated with his teammates.
Laura Albanese, Newsday.
Hey, Steve, just going back to James, how do you balance being careful with him and getting that final live action tune-up? And I guess how necessary do you think that sort of tune-up is for a player who is as skilled as he is and who has that court IQ?
You know, the rhythm, basketball is a game of rhythm. You know, it's really important, I think, to feel in rhythm. And sometimes, you know, that can be physical and mental. So he could physically train as much as he wants, but until you get out there in a game and prove to yourself mentally that your rhythm is there or it's close to being there, you know, there is a gap. And I can relate to that as a player. So I think part of this is the performance team saying that, hey, we have the markers to say he's safe to play now. You know, in a vacuum, we might say he's not playing until the playoffs. But basketball's played on the floor, and it's not just like James Harden jumps into a playoff game and it's James Harden. You know, there are things that he needs individually and personally to feel confident and comfortable and to get reps. So, you know, I think that is why we would take any sort of risk of him playing in one of these games, you know, and so that he can find that rhythm and comfort, because I think that is a big part of returning to play. Isn't just, you know, once he's past his kind of markers, you could say, well, he's healthy enough to play him. And then there's the alternative. Well, why would we risk it when we're going to need him in the playoffs? But I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle. And part of it is for the team to feel him and for him to feel the game again. So it's one thing to play in stay ready groups. It's one thing to do all the prep. But once you're out there on the court, it's always different and impossible to replicate.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, talking about Bruce, you know, he hadn't really played many possessions as a roller before trading for James. Was that something you guys were looking at before the trade and maybe James kind of accelerated that? Or was that maybe born out of the way James runs the offense and kind of how Bruce can fit in or play alongside him or something else?
I can't remember now if he started rolling before James got here or not. But in any event, you know, we recognized that was something he could do for us, that if they were going to put a lesser defender on him, first of all, he could screen to get that lesser defender on one of our stars. And he became so mobile and a dynamic rolling, even though he's only 6'3", 6'4". You know, he can cause problems for people. He's tough. He has a knack for it. He's a good finisher for his size. So it kind of evolved in front of us. It wasn't like we're like, let's put Bruce in and have him be a roller. We just put him in. We asked him to pick at times because, you know, he could bring up a defender that was more favorable. And then he became kind of, you know, surprisingly such a good roller and adept at it that we encouraged it and pushed for it.
Last question, Michael Grady.
Coach, going back to Landry for a moment, he's mentioned a few times that, you know, he's his worst critic and that he has a tendency to get in his own head. In your experience, both with coaching now, but even going back to your playing days, how do you approach a guy who, again, is already his harshest critic and not want to pile on to help him get out of his situation?
Well, I've talked to him a few times about it this year. You know, the bottom line is maturity and experience. And as he grows in the game, you know, he'll decreasingly find himself in his own head. And so, you know, the more quickly that comes, great. But the first step is to understand, like right now, whether that's the issue right now or not, that when you do feel like you might be in your head, accepting that. And, you know, a lot of guys, you know, if they don't accept that, they're constantly battling themselves. So I think he's a really intelligent person. I think he understands that sometimes he gets in his own head. And just talking to him about, you know, from my experience in my career, being a younger player, you know, there's no value in it. So like the sooner you can understand that and just, you know, resort to your routine, resort to the preparation, and during the games, enjoy and be process oriented, not outcome oriented. You know, the sooner you can kind of, it's easy to say, you know, those are words in a book or a mantra, but the sooner you can kind of embody that, the more liberating it is. So I think he's going through that a little bit right now. And we have every confidence that he'll make shots, but also that he'll kind of mature and through experience and recognize that because he has the intelligence and skill to do so.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.